what's one question that you ask every mentor that you're interviewing or thinking about hiring?
Who's your mentor?
Ooh, that's nice.
Yeah,
That's
I would never get a mentor that doesn't have a mentor, because that means like they don't see the value in having a mentor or continuously learning.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us on the Evolve Your Brand podcast. I'm your host, Ollie Amirkhiz, and as always, just want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Icon Industries. Shane, you love yourself so much, you had to go hire 2 other people that are named Shane. Steven and the whole team here, thank you for all you do. Your standards are excellent, and that's why we put on such a great show for all the amazing guests that we have. Without further ado, I have Steven Billman, owner of B&B Syndicate. Welcome.
How's it going?
So excited to have you, man.
Yeah, yes sir.
Like, okay. So normally I don't get this excited to get to know someone, and I'm like, holy shit. Like, you guys are in for it. This kid is, and I apologize for saying kid, but 23 years old with what you've done. Pretty freaking impressive.
I appreciate it.
You got it. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you excited?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get after it. So where does the Steven journey begin? Like, where'd you grow up and what led you to San Diego?
Yeah, so I don't know how far back you want me to go, but I guess we got time. So I grew up in South Texas, around the Corpus Christi area. My parents got divorced at a pretty young age. So that was kind of, and I'm the oldest of 5. So I kind of took on, I guess you could say, it's just kind of like a natural, like big brother, like role. Yeah, all kinds of stuff went on from like, all my parents were divorced. My sister had cancer for a little bit, so I was living with my grandparents. And then I ended up like staying in a foster home for a little bit because my grandma actually owned like a foster home. And like my mom couldn't afford anywhere to stay, so we stayed in the foster home. So I wasn't like necessarily a foster kid, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, like I was, because that's who I hung out with, that's who I went to school with and everything. And then pretty much from there, grew up fishing and hunting. Was really an outdoor kid for most of my life. And then something that like I noticed pretty early age was that like all of like the men in my family had like, in South Texas, like the big thing is like refineries, oil refineries, chemical refineries, whatever it may be. Even my dad now, he works offshore, like on a oil rig. So like they make decent money, but they're not home very often. And if it is, like they're home every day, they're working a lot of hours, and they're just like kind of beating their body apart. So like something that I like to talk about a lot is because a lot of people, when they're talking about like finances, like they only refer to like money. But I think something that people need to think about a lot more is time, because you can always make more money. But like time is something that's free, but it's also priceless at the same time. So I think it's something that's super, super important, something that I noticed at a very early age. And then getting into like high school, like I was telling you earlier, I got into tons and tons of things. Like when fidget spinners first came out, I had bought those from China, sold them in high school for like 8 times what I bought them for. Made a little money from that, and that's where I kind of got my like first taste of entrepreneurship. And then started just mowing yards, having like a mower and a weed eater, and like a leaf blower in the bed of my truck, kind of just driving around, picking up yards, into where I had like I had a whole list of people that I had to do like every month. So it's like pretty consistent. And the yards are pretty small. I can do them pretty fast. So I was getting $40 a yard. So I could do about 2 yards an hour. So I was making about $80 an hour at like 16, 17. And yeah, that's kind of what led me to where I am now. I joined the Navy not because like, I know like people like hate when I tell them this, because people are like, you joined the Navy because you want to like defend our freedom, stuff like that. I mean, that's cool and all. I mean, that's like cool part of it. But like, it might sound like kind of selfish, but like the main reason I did it was just to like get out of my town, get out of like my, I guess you can call it like bubble, which a lot of people get trapped in like their hometown and they never really do anything because they see the same things all the time. They don't get outside of like their bubble. So I think that's something that really benefited me a lot, because when I first got to San Diego and got to like my first ship because of the Navy, the ship is like cold, small, no phone service. Your bed is like as wide as this chair. It just sucks. And your closet is under your bed. So it was terrible. So I was sleeping in the back seat of my truck because, as you know, San Diego doesn't really get too hot or too cold. So I was lucky with that. And my back seat was bigger than my bed, and I had phone service so I can talk to people because I didn't have anyone or know anyone from here. So that's kind of when I started looking into other alternatives because I wasn't making as much as I wanted to make, and I definitely didn't want to keep sleeping in my the back seat of my truck or on the ship. And I wanted to get a place to live. So I got into all kinds of stuff: crypto, drop shipping, day trading, Amazon. And then, long story short, I knew I wanted to get into real estate. But at the time I didn't know anything about like business funding or business credit or even just regular credit in general. And I didn't think I could like get into like real estate to where I could buy a property or even think about getting into like multifamily. And I eventually stumbled upon this thing called rental arbitrage. Did a bunch of research on it, YouTube, university, Google, everything that I could find on it. And I was pretty hard-headed because at the time there wasn't like too many, like it wasn't a huge thing quite yet as far as like having like a mentor for business and stuff like that. And there was a couple people doing it at the time, but I was super hard-headed. I was like, I don't need a mentor. I don't need anybody's help. Like, it's all just on YouTube. There's still people that think that way. They're like, it's all free on YouTube. I'm like, go do it. And then you'll wish you had a mentor. So I got my first property actually here in Escondido. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a pool. Got it furnished. Luckily, Navy Fed. Me being active duty, they gave me a pretty high limit. I think they gave me about $30K on my first, actually my second credit card, but at like 19, which I don't know how they decided to give me that much, but cool. And that's what I used to furnish that property. And hardly broke even that first month. And knew like it was going to kill me the second and third month if I didn't figure out like what was wrong. And that property was about $4,000 a month, and I had spent like 20 grand on furniture. So I was like super negative. And I eventually went to a bunch of real estate events, and learned a little bit about rental arbitrage. But what I learned most like from those events is like every person there that had like a bunch of doors or a bunch of properties was because they had a mentor or someone that like had taught them, someone that had like showed them a way so they didn't have to fail like along the whole way. So eventually I had gotten a mentor, learned a little bit, learned a lot from like my own mistakes, and did 10K and 12K the second and third month on that property. Sadly, the owner on that property wanted to turn the garage into a bedroom. So we ended up just like splitting ways. And I took the furniture to my next property that was in Phoenix. And we ended up scaling from there, getting 6 properties in Phoenix, and then 10 properties in South Carolina. And yeah, and then being in the Navy, people would see me like all the time, what I would be doing, whether it be on like on Instagram, or they'd see like what I was driving and stuff like that. And people just naturally got curious of what I was doing. So I started teaching people for free, just showing people like what I know, which was super like counterproductive because I didn't have like a course or anything built out. I was teaching like every person like from the beginning. Every time I teach a new person, it was like the whole thing over and over. It's kind of repetitive, kind of a waste of time. But people were getting good results. People were making money with it. And I was like, okay, I'm wasting all my time. I'm not getting paid for any of this, and people are making money from what I'm teaching them. So what I'm going to do is I see all these people that are like gurus in the space and stuff like that. And so what I did was on top of the knowledge that I already knew, I went and bought like everybody's course, like on Airbnb arbitrage, on rental arbitrage, so that I could know like what was out there and what wasn't out there. And then when I went to create my course, based it off that, so that I knew that my course had everything that you would need, along with like all the downloadables, PDFs, like lease agreements, documents, everything that you could possibly need. Pretty much built out like a perfect A to Z system that people could use. And then how it is today, I have like the full course. We do Zoom calls every week. They get all my PDFs, documents, everything. And then they also get access to like my VA, which is a virtual assistant, that locates properties for me. So all she does all day is calls landlords and gets a yes from them. And I can connect my students with her as well. And she'll just find properties for them. So like the biggest bottleneck with this business is like pitching to landlords, ultimately just sales. And if most people are not great at sales, and even more people suck at confrontation. That's why most people are broke, because they're scared to be uncomfortable. So that kind of eliminates that. She can do it all for you. Of course, I teach people like how to be in the right place, how to act, how to talk, how to pitch the landlord, how to close the landlord. I teach everybody how to do that themselves. But if they wish to have someone like do it for them, they can use my property locator. There's something huge that actually is pretty new that I have, is a platform that has properties that are already approved. So it's just a bunch of VAs that go out all day and call landlords and get yeses. And people that have access to that platform can just claim the property. So it's just scrolling, they can click claim. So that's pretty cool, and that's how we are now. Yeah, of course I got like more of like I guess you could say a ladder of like things that I offer, but that's pretty much like my basic one that most people go with.
What you said that your dad works on the oil refinery. Mm-hmm. What lesson did you learn from that said I want a different life?
Seeing him all the time, always like beat, tired. Even now, like when I talk to him, he's like, I can't wait to go home. He's just always tired. And just seems like he's never can like get ahead or like make enough, even though he's making like good money. But like it's just beating him like physically. So it's just like, I don't know. I don't think it's worth it. This is something that like I like to talk about is like leverage. Leverage is super, super important when it comes to like time versus money. And my goal is to obviously make as much money as I can with as little work as possible. So yeah.
So Beja, you and Beja, when you talk about like your life goals, mm-hmm. What does happiness look like for you guys?
I guess happiness would just be complete in total, like financial and time freedom. She's it's like she loves to be out of the house. And then once I'm out of the Navy, we'll be traveling like crazy. So that's ultimately it right there. Just being able to travel whenever, wherever. And that's kind of like why I like the business that I'm in, because I can do it remotely and do it from anywhere, no matter where I'm at. As long as I got Wi-Fi, like I'm good.
Life by design.
Yeah.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Who are your mentors? Like people, you said the biggest lesson you learned going to real estate events was get a mentor. What have you learned, like good and bad, about being a mentor that you're incorporating, you're doing better for B&B Syndicate?
Something that I think is huge, and I think is like 99% of mentors, is they just like sell a course or a product. And it kind of makes everybody else look bad. They're actually like doing it legitimately, is like the lack of give a fuck. Like they just don't care about their students. Is it okay if I cuss? Okay. I was like, just a lot of people, like, they just don't give a shit about their students.
Steven, you know what's funny? I like to study all the guests that come on, mm-hmm. So that way we can connect, we can bond, and it's a real conversation that gives people an opportunity to know who who are you? Like, why should if I want to learn, Airbnb arbitrage, why should I listen to you? What makes you the expert in this space?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more real than we are with how we roll in life, it just gives people an opportunity to connect with us. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I mean, I don't like to filter myself. I think I've earned it in life to be able to talk however I want. So
it's funny that you said you earned it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anyone that can just tell me like I can't talk like that, and I'm like, okay.
I'm with you, man. Like, just having 3 boys, and it's funny. You're one of 5, right? You have 4 siblings.
Mm-hmm.
It's just different. Like, you get a different perspective when you have kids and you're trying to teach them life.
Yeah. And
you know what hard looks like.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about hard, so like we're just getting started on this, and it's just unbelievable that you can just tell, like, hey, what you took was you took the obstacles and challenges in life and figured out, like, how do I make this better? What do I learn from this? And then just keep applying and getting better. Yeah. So I think it's so cool to meet someone that at 23, it's like, this is what my last 4 years have looked like. And, I've earned the right to speak my mind and be myself. Like, yeah, awesome. Like, fucking get it. So yeah, yes. That was a long answer, but I just want you to know, like, this has been awesome. Rarely it's like you get to meet someone and within like 20, 25 minutes, be able to bond with them and be like, I like how, the impact this person wants to make on the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
So getting back to you and Beja, like what's on the tour of what's to come? Traveling.
I really want to go to like Indonesia.
Okay.
She doesn't really care. She wants to go all over the place. Like if I say somewhere, she's like cool with it, as long as it's not like dangerous.
Okay. I don't know. I think you could roll with dangerous too. Are you an extreme sport guy or no?
That's what I was saying. I was like, I wanted to go to like Brazil and like Rio and stuff. And she's like, oh, I don't know. Sometimes those are pretty dangerous. I was like,
life is dangerous.
I was like, you're gonna die one day. I was like, you just don't want to go to those places ever? Never see them with your own eyes?
So like, just meeting a lot of self-made, millionaires. I think what's interesting is like you have this gravitation towards entrepreneurship. Like, what was it? You talked about ordering the Alibaba, those 500 and then selling them. Like, how'd you feel when you accomplished that? What is it about entrepreneurship that you love?
I think I just love like the grind, like the hustle. Just be able to, like, the coolest thing I think about entrepreneurship is like finding things that are new. That you can, I mean, when you're new and you're in like they call it like the blue ocean, like your product or whatever it is. But if you find that one thing and you're like, if you're the only one with it, like you can kind of, it's not really like a market price anymore. You can kind of just price it how you want.
You created your own market.
Yeah. And that's what I love about entrepreneurship. Like if you have the best prices for something, you're going to get the most customers. Or if you have the best product, you're going to get the most expensive customers. Like if you know how to play the game, it's a fun game to play. But if you're just doing something that's like no hate on like brick and mortar businesses, but those are typically like pretty hard to get up and going in the beginning and be like super profitable. And like a lot of them takes a couple of years to be like predictably profitable. So yeah.
Were you at all surprised, like once you started achieving success, you said, I bought my first property, or not bought it, but got the first property in Escondido. It was $4,000, you're losing. Like, what made you decide not to quit and just keep pushing forward?
I think something big that I look at in life is like, I don't know, I feel like some people think that we have like forever to live. Like we have a lot of time, like to make mistakes and learn from them. A lot of people just don't ever make those mistakes because they're scared. But like my belief, the faster you can make those mistakes, the faster you can learn from them. So like if you're like prolonging something because it might fail, then like you're also prolonging the chance that it succeeds. So like whether it fails or succeeds, it doesn't matter, because if it fails, you're going to learn from it and then hopefully turn it into a succeed. But I think that's super huge. And yeah, people like I'm thinking about like writing like a book on this as well, about like people's belief on like they think that we're going to live forever. When I feel like, I don't know, what's the average like life expectancy, like 75, 80? Like to me that's not very long, and I've only lived for like 23, and some people say like short years. And like if you look at it that way, I'm like almost 1/3 in the grave, and I'm super young. So like imagine the people that are listening to this, or like people that think about this, they're 40, 50, 60, like you're even farther along than me, like, and that just doesn't scare people. Something that I used to have in my office was a 4,000 board, which is like on average, and it's actually above average, but 4,000 weeks that someone lives. And I think it comes out to like 80 something years, which is above like life expectancy. But anyway, like I would mark out like every week. And like when you see 4,000 dots on a board and like 1/3 of them are crossed out, you're like, holy shit, like time is ticking. Like, yeah, that's
amazing.
Yeah.
I have one of those boards. Yeah. Now you just gave me the motivation to fucking put it up.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's terrifying.
I don't know. I don't get a terrifying vibe from you at all. I get a like it's more determination.
Yeah, definitely. Like,
do you know what I mean?
I'm definitely not like scared to die.
Yeah.
I don't think. But I don't know. I guess I'm scared to just waste a life. I mean, the odds of like you being born is already like a pretty small like chance.
Right.
So like the fact that you're like even born, you should at least like give it the best chance you got, whether it like be failing or succeeding. But like, I don't know. I think the thing that I am scared of is like dying one day. And like, I feel like I don't know anything like what happens like when you die, but like, you know how in like movies when someone dies and like their whole life flashes before their eyes.
Yeah.
Like, if that does happen, like I'm scared that if I'll die, like I'll be able to see like my whole life. And if I was just like a lazy person, like I'll see all the times that like I was sitting on my ass, like on my phone, not doing anything. I just waste this time that you could have been well spent, or time that could have been given to someone else that would have actually used it like worthwhile.
Who's like, I'm really curious who your influencers have been for, you know, to shape your vision of what life looks like. Because it's pretty, I mean, it's pretty spot on. And that's why I think I gravitated towards like, you're not just talking about, it's the discipline to get shit done. Mm-hmm. You know, regardless of what you do. That's really what I get from your like brand and what you stand for.
People like, especially when people are first getting into like, and you'll hear it a lot like on social media when it comes around like New Year's. Like people are always talking about like all these fancy words like motivation, like just getting shit done, like all this, but like none of that fucking matters. Like I go to the gym like every single day. Like my workout split is 8 days, so there's no like rest days in between. Now I have it split up that way because my workouts aren't as long, so I don't need like a full day's rest. But like I don't want to go to the gym every day. Like I don't want to wake up every morning, like start writing my book. I don't want to like every day get home and like record content. I don't want to talk to my team. I don't want to do that every single day. And it's not motivation. It's not like drive or any of that. It's just that like it needs to get done, and that's all there is to it. Like it just has to get done, so I'm gonna do it. And there's no like how I feel. Like it doesn't make me feel sad or happy. It's just do it. Like that's just it.
What's the driving factor where it's not an option?
I'm not sure. I don't know if I even like have like a version that, or like a way to like put that into words. That's just like how I guess I'm wired.
Well, I love how you're wired, bro. Like it's awesome.
like I don't know. I don't know if I could like something that I'm scared of is to have kids and be able to like teach them to be that way, or like to be the way that I am. But I don't know if it's so much as being taught that way or just being that way. Like your brain is just wired to, because like something that like happens to me, like if I don't wake up early and like I just skip like writing my book, or like if I skip the gym, like I get like kind of like a, I guess you could say like a mini depression. Like I feel like shit if I like skip those things. If I don't do what I'm supposed to do, like, and I skip it, like it makes me feel like ass. And if I do it like the next day, it just like keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And like the more I like knock things out, and it just like I feel better about myself. I feel like better. Like I just have more energy. I don't like want to just sit on my ass and not do anything. Like you get one thing knocked out, it kind of like boosts your energy, which is, you would think it'd be opposite. Like putting energy out would like cost you energy, and like you would have less and less energy, but it's kind of the opposite. Like I'm full of energy after like a workout. Like even with like no pre-workout or anything, like I'm full of energy because I got that knocked out. Or if I like finish a bunch of content, like I feel awesome after it, because it's like I just enjoy being productive and it makes me feel good.
Yeah, you have that entrepreneur, mindset and mentality. Is that part of your training program?
Yeah. I go into mindset. I feel like I need to go into it more, because when I created the course, I wasn't like too huge on mindset. It was more of just like just do it. But I realized like not everyone's the way that I am, and like
what made you learn that, by the way? Like, how did you learn? You're like, oh, okay, well, this comes naturally to me, but not to everybody else. What made you realize that?
My wife, like talking to my wife, I'm like, she's like, well, I feel like shit. I don't want to do it. And I was like, money doesn't care if you feel like shit. I was like, getting things done. Like those obstacles don't care how you feel. Like, so like, and she was like, well, I feel like shit, so I'm not doing it. It's like, oh, like
it's a little different with your wife. You know what I mean? What about your students? Like, can you tell as you have people go through the course, like what gets in their way? And then how do you help them?
Yeah, a lot of it is mindset, because like what I teach is like literally step by step. There's no guesswork or anything for you. You just have to like just physically do the thing that you're being told to do. But something that is hard for people is just to do those things, like to sit down and just do work. Like a lot of people just have to have their brain like preoccupied with something. And I think it's like a lot of people, it's like most people like need music to like work, or like something going on the side. I think it's almost impossible for some people to just put like when I'm like writing my book and stuff like that, I'll put headphones on with no music. I just sit there in my own head, silence. Phone's not even in the same room. It's on my MacBook's on D&D. So it's just like me and my own thoughts, and like just strictly like deep work. And you'll hear it on social media, like referred to as like monk mode, or like flow state, to where you can just pump out work and be super productive. But that'll never happen if someone's like stuck on like needing to have something in front of their face, like keeping their brain going without like thinking. I think it's an issue with a lot of people, especially like my generation, more and more. Like people spend 3, 4, 5 hours a day on like TikTok, and you're like, what's the last, like if they get off their phone, like what's the last TikTok you watched? Like they couldn't even tell you. So like you're watching something, you're not remembering any of it, and it's just, you're quite literally wasting time. You're just scrolling your life away.
You're talking about focus work. I was watching one of your reels on Instagram, and it talked about focus work. And it's like one of the most challenging things. And a lot of entrepreneurs that I meet, they talk about meditation. So do you meditate? Like, how are you building that muscle memory when it comes to focus work?
So something that I like to do when it comes to like doing deep work like that, like some people can do it this way. I used to do it that way, but it kind of makes it to where like you just burn yourself out. But it's like doing deep work for like hours upon hours and hours, and just like solely that. So something that I like to do is like I do like deep work for like an hour, and then like respond to messages or like put IG stories up for like 15 minutes. Just like be on social media for like 10, 15 minutes. Not just like scrolling. I mean, I'm not like perfect human being at all. Like I definitely scroll on social media and stuff, but I don't sit there and just like binge it. But yeah, I think the key to it is just like taking breaks, or I'll run downstairs, like grab a protein bar, or go like play with my dog for like 10-15 minutes, talk to my wife, and then go back up and then do some more work. I think the key to it is just taking breaks so that you can be consistent rather than just like going hard in the paint, doing like 8 hours of work one day, and the next day you're like freaking burnt out because you just did it for 8 hours yesterday, and then you're just inconsistent because you can't like do the same thing over and over. So I guess find like what your max is as far as like work that you can put in, and figure out like what you need to do to like keep that consistent. Like I could like one day sit down and like work for 16 hours straight, but I promise you I'm not about to do it the next day. Like you're not going to do 16 like deep work. You're not going to be able to do it. You're going to burn yourself out. So yeah, to answer your question, is just find out like what you can do, and then figure out what you need to do to keep it consistent. So
Yeah, I appreciate the fact that you're bringing up the mindset aspect of it too, because as I get more and more mentors, it's that holistic approach to change that you have to adopt. You know, what was missing with the Airbnb arbitrage when it came to mentors and training? Like, what did you do to make it the best in market? I loved your idea. Like you went and did your field research, bought everyone's program. Like what were the pros and cons of what was out there? And then how are you solving what was missing?
I think something that's missing was one, that I offer like property locators. They can find properties for people, because most programs like just teach you how to pitch and close landlords yourself. And a lot of them out there is just a course. Like it's not even like Zoom calls or tools or anything. It's just like a course that teaches you how to do it, which is like cool and all. But it's like if you were to go to college for a degree and they just gave you the book like about the degree and there was no teacher, they were just like, here, read this book. If you read this book, you'll know everything. Would not work. Like, I don't know, if you had a surgeon, would you trust them if they were like, yeah, I went to college, and I learned everything from a book. Like, I didn't learn from another surgeon, never did like practicals, never was taught anything, just read it or watched it. Like, I don't think you'd feel very comfortable with that. So yeah, the things that are missing is just like having like one-on-one, like actually interaction like with your mentor, like whether it be on Zoom or in person, and having that mentor like actually give a fuck, because a lot of them are just like show up and be like, okay, who's got questions? And they answer questions like, peace, guys. Like after like not even like dive into like their business and stuff like that. So I think that's super key. But none of them offer like property locators, or especially not like a platform that already has properties that are approved. Something huge that I even offer is because something that I like to do with this business is relying on business credit. But with business credit, to get high limits, like you obviously have to have good personal credit. So whether or not someone has, or I guess if they have bad credit, I also have like an in-house credit repair team. So I can fix somebody's credit and then get their business set up, get their business credit and everything set up so they can get going that way. And then I also have an in-house funding team. So what does that mean? Like funding, once you have like a good personal credit, you have your LLC set up, you got like your tier 1, tier 2 accounts like set up on your LLC. Cool. You can just go to like a credit union or a bank and just get like your business credit cards. Now you're going to probably have a new LLC, and they're just going to fund you pretty much based off your personal credit, which they'll probably give you, I don't know, 20 to 50,000 if you have good credit. But if you're working with like a funding team, typically funding teams charge like a success fee. So whatever you get funded for, they're going to charge a percentage. A lot of them charge like 15 to 20%. My funding team only charges 10%. So that's pretty cool. But what they do is they actually have direct access to the underwriters at the bank, which are like the people that decide how high of limits you get on your business credit cards. So it's ultimately like I give my students the choice, like, hey, you can go get these cards yourself. I'll show you exactly how to do it yourself. But just keep in mind, you're not going to get as high as limits. Now, if you work with a funding team, yeah, you're going to have to pay that percentage on the back end. But in my opinion, I'd rather have like $50,000 to $100,000 and have to pay like 10% versus like 20, like in between 20 to 50K, and not even know like how much I'm probably going to get beforehand. And that's just like hoping you get close to 50K, and not paying anything. It's just ultimately up to the person and kind of like their risk tolerance, because the people that want to go like really fast and get a bunch of properties, like of course the more funding you have, the faster that you can do that, and the more money you can get into your bank, recuperate everything faster. So in my opinion, like I would go with the funding team, because that's just going to be the fastest way to do it, most effective way. And with this business, like you're going to recuperate that 10% like from the funding team pretty quickly anyway. So I wouldn't even sweat it.
Because you give a fuck.
Yeah.
Go figure. Like you're like, hey, I know you're going to make the money back. And can you share a recent like arbitrage that you did? Like how did that go about? How you found the deal? Can you just kind of walk through like you're active duty right now, which I thought I'm like, oh, okay, you just don't have enough on your plate, huh? Okay. So thank you for your service, by the way. So I'm active duty. I'm thinking about like, hey, what's my exit strategy once I'm out? I think you got military to millionaires. I mean, it's fucking branded on his shirt. I mean, I'm not making this up. Where would I get started? Share a story of what recent success one of your students or you have had.
Yeah. So I'm going to go down like the process first, and then I'll go to like recent successes with my students.
Awesome.
So the process that I would go through, well, first of all, like I wouldn't get into like any business really, unless it's like something that doesn't take any money, which if it didn't take any money, it's probably not going to make you that much money. That's you'll hear it a million times.
Facts are facts.
Like spend money to make money, and then scared money doesn't make money. But I would make sure you have pretty decent credit beforehand, like getting into any of this. And when I say that, most people are like, what is decent credit? And I'll ask somebody, what's your credit? And they're like, oh, it's pretty good. I have like a 620. And I'm like, that is not fucking good. That is not good, bro. But what I mean by decent credit is over a 680 credit score, like cross bureaus, like all your bureaus. Don't go somewhere if you have like a 700 on Experian and like a 500 on Equifax, like something's messed up somewhere. But yeah, like a 680 or above across the board. And you're going to preferably want 2 credit cards that are preferably 2 years old, that are over 2,500 limit on each. That's kind of like just working with these banks on funding and stuff. That's kind of what they're looking for. Over 680, 2 credit cards over 2 years old, and over 2,500 limit on each. Now there is like ways to get around that. If you only have 1 credit card, but you have like a paid off car, cool. Or if you have like 1 credit card and like a house loan or mortgage, then that's cool as well. But from there, if you're good on that aspect of things, if not, you don't even have to connect with me. You can connect with any like reputable credit repair team and get your credit repaired. If you have like late payments, inquiries, collections, anything like that, get that off your credit as soon as possible. Because if not, once something hits, it takes, I think, 7 years to come off your credit. So that's kind of a while to wait. But from there, I would get your LLC set up. There's a bunch of places you can do it on. I prefer doing it on InkFile. That's just a website you can set up your LLC. And you don't have to have your LLC set up in the state that you're in either. I like to set mine up either in Wyoming, Delaware, or Nevada. Those are going to be the 3 best places for like asset protection and just taxes overall. So I definitely set up in one of those 3 places. I set mine all up in Wyoming. It's the cheapest to do it in. I think it's like $130, pretty easy. But fill out all your information on InkFile, get everything set up on there. And they're going to try to upsell you and try to sell you on like, they'll do your EIN and your Dun & Bradstreet, stuff like that for you. You can pay for it if you want. I wouldn't, because you can just go onto the IRS website and get your EIN number for free. Go on Dun & Bradstreet and go on that website and get your Dun & Bradstreet number for free. So I don't see why you wouldn't just take the extra 5 minutes and go get it for free. From there, I'd set up like your net 30, net 60 accounts. These are just like kind of like, Amazon actually has it as well, but they're like websites like Amazon where you can just buy pretty much anything depending on the website. And they'll give you like 30 days to pay it off or 60 days to pay it off. And that way you can build your business credit. There's a bunch of other websites that you can build business credit on as well, like nav.com, Credit Strong, and these are just ways to like build. You can do those for personal and business as well. But yeah, just make sure your business is all set, and make sure to set up your business email, website, and phone number. Don't use your personal address or your personal phone number or personal email. That makes you look incredibly unprofessional when you're trying to reach out to the landlord and they're like, oh, it's like I'm awesome 72@gmail.com, and they're like, this guy wants to rent out my house. Like, they're not going to take you seriously. But yeah, have a professional email, business phone number, and professional website. And then from there, decide whether or not you're going to go to a bank and get the funding, or you're going to work with the funding team, and bring all your business documents to the bank with you. And yeah, you should be good from there. Once you get funded, typically when you're working with me, you either find a property yourself or use property locator, what have you, to find the property for you. And then from there, figure out whether or not you're gonna like do the interior design yourself. You're gonna live on Pinterest for a couple days, or hire an interior designer. That's what I prefer. Like, it always makes sense to hire somebody who's the professional, like at the thing. Like, I'm not a professional interior designer or photographer, so I don't do those things.
Steven, I wouldn't hire you to design. I'm just like, you seem very talented, just not as a designer.
No. It's not what I enjoy either. Like, I enjoy numbers and money. Like, that's like what I enjoy doing. So I'd rather pay someone. From there, get your property furnished.
What tips do you have about furnishing? Like, what's important?
Accent walls.
Okay.
So I would say when you're pitching to a landlord, make sure that it's okay with them. Either that you can paint the wall, do like wallpaper or stuff like this, where it's like PVC panels and stuff like that. Just make sure they're cool with stuff like that, because some landlords don't want you touching anything. Like, they want the house to just be all white.
Okay.
And accent walls are super huge. Not so much to like the house itself, but they're super key when it comes to eye candy. Because the biggest thing about this business is not that it's, get it out of your head that it's a real estate business, because it's not. It's a hospitality business. And with that being said, it's technically a customer support business. So you're working with people. And the way that these platforms are set up, like Airbnb, I'm sure anyone listening or watching this has been on Airbnb. It's set up the same way like Instagram is. You just scroll through properties, and people click on the one that looks the prettiest or like catches their eye. So if you have a property that just looks like your house, like just a normal house that you probably live in every day, like my house wouldn't look like any of my Airbnbs. Like, I don't like care that much to put in that much work. Because I'm not getting professional photos taken of my house and like put it out there for the world to see. But yeah, I would definitely say accent walls. And the biggest thing I would say to getting eyeballs on your listing, and then eventually the bookings from those eyeballs, is having just amenities, like full kitchen, with pots and pans, everything like that, fire pit, just everything that you could offer. Extra beds, like roll-out beds or air mattresses, whatever it may be. Just offer as many amenities as you can, because I promise you they won't hurt. And especially when it comes to like, try to dial in on experience, other than like just setting a property to look good. And that what I mean by that is like having like floaties in the pool, having like a pool table, ping pong table, like stuff for people to do at the house, whether or not they're actually going to do it. But those things, like, they photograph really well and they look really good in photos. Or like cornhole boards, stuff like that. Pickleball, like putting green, Those things, especially like putting greens, are extremely aesthetic in photos. Whether like most of the time people don't actually use them, they just like the idea of like thinking that they might use it. But it looks cool in photos and gets people to click on it, and ultimately gets people to book. So yeah, I would say the key to designing is just having eye candy in your property. Like don't make a property that you wouldn't stop and look at. Like something that I like to tell my students is like when they're trying to figure out, they're kind of like stuck on like how they're gonna do the design. Is like go to the area that they're gonna do that their property's gonna be at, and just go on Airbnb and just like scroll, find the properties that are gonna catch their eye, and not copy what they do, but pretty much like emulate what they're doing and preferably do it better. So I mean, if it caught your eye, it probably caught a million other people's eyes. Like nobody's special. Like I don't know. I've had a ton of people that are like caught my eye, but I'm not sure if it would like catch other people's eyes. I'm like, you're not special, bro. If like it caught your eye, it's gonna catch somebody else's eye. Like if there's like a peak floating unicorn in the pool, and that was like it's called the hero photo, like the first photo you see,
Right.
and that caught your eye, like I promise you, it's gonna catch somebody else's eye. So yeah, eye candy is the biggest thing.
Okay, and then what about Reese's story of success? One of your guys that you're just proud of?
Yeah, so I'll pick, I'll go over a couple of them actually. But recently I had, I'm going to say this one just because it's on my YouTube and people can like actually watch the whole thing.
Oh, awesome. There you go. And we'll put the link on it.
Yeah, my students, Nick and River, they were door-to-door solar salesmen. And they had wanted to get an Airbnb. They kind of did what I did. They didn't think they needed a mentor or anything like that. And then they bought their first property, got it furnished, and like, well, they thought they got it furnished. It was kind of furnished. And they were like, okay, we're good to go. And then they're like, now what do we do? And then they reached out to me. I started working with them. Within 60 days, they went from 1 property to 4 properties. And they went from no revenue to $20,000 a month in revenue. And that's like consistently every month. They're not door-to-door salesmen anymore. Every time I talk to them, they're in like another country somewhere, like their girlfriend. So they're loving it. And like I said, in less than 90 days, they were doing, depending on the month, in between $15,000 to $20,000 a month in revenue at about, and people always ask this, like, well, that's not profit though. Well, they're profiting like 50 to 60%, depending on like what goes on that month. So yeah, putting $7,500 to $10,000 in their pocket for a couple weeks of work, I think it's pretty worth it for me. And it's monthly, recurring every single month. So that's pretty dope. They're good to work with. They're in their early 20s. They're around my age too. I think one is 22, the other one's 23 or 24. But they're my age. And then even more recently than that, I had one of my students, Javi, who's actually from South Texas as well. But he, straight out of high school, he's kind of like, I'd say he even did it a little bit better than me because he never even like worked like a full-time job. Straight out of high school, he got into like the ATM business and had a bunch of ATMs, and that's like, he was making about like $7,500 to $10,000 a month, but it had taken him like years and years to get to the point where he's at now. And he had got with me, and he was like, well, I want to get in real estate, but like, I don't want to have to buy a bunch of properties because all the effort that it takes to buying properties and money and everything. So within 30 days, we got him his first property in Phoenix, Arizona. And he did $15,000 his first month on that property. And I think the rent on that property is like $3,000. So he profited about $11,000 his first month. And then like after that first month, he came to me, he's like, dude, he's like, I want to go all in on this Airbnb thing. He's like, fuck ATMs. He's like, I want to do this Airbnb thing huge. And I was like, What was it that was more attractive to him? Did he talk to you about that? Like, what was better about doing the AirBNB arbitrage versus the ATM business? Yeah, I think the biggest thing was just like, time to profit ratio, like the amount of time it took him to make that amount of money was like, I mean, a month, versus like his ATM business took him years to get to that point. And I think the biggest thing that's like attractive to all my students or just anyone in this industry is using business credit. So you can effectively get a profitable business without spending a single dollar. So breaking down that a little bit more, if you get a business credit card that's, I don't know, it doesn't really matter what the limit is, but if you spend like $20,000 and that card is costing you, I don't know, $1,000 a month to pay it off, you have a property that you spent that money on to get everything done for it, and that property is profiting, even on the low end, say it's profiting like after expenses $3,000 a month, and now $1,000 out of $3,000 has to go to that credit card. You're still profiting $2,000 every month in your pocket, and you didn't have to spend a dollar of your own money. Like, I think it's kind of like a no-brainer, and I think that's super appealing to most people, especially if your credit's already right. It's super easy to set up your LLC and get it going, to where you can get funded large amounts. So yeah, I think it's the most appealing thing about this.
So Steven, here's my question for you. A lot of, a lot of families I've helped over the years, they don't necessarily feel comfortable leveraging debt to make money. How come that worked for you? Like, what was it that you realized about leveraging debt to create money to get you closer to your goal? How did you have that breakthrough? What was it?
Yeah, so with business credit cards, depending on like which one you have, there's 0% interest anywhere from 12 to 18 months. So I wouldn't, if like something happened or it failed, and actually pretty crazy statistic, like I've never had any of my students lose any money or lose any properties or anything like that, which is pretty crazy because I've taught a couple hundred people. And typically somewhere along the line, you'll have somebody that like screws it up, but I haven't. But I think the thing that like helped me get around it is that, one, that it is 0% interest, so I wouldn't have like APR like trying to eat me. And if it did fail, like it would, depending on how much I spent, like $5, maybe even like $1,000 a month on the card payment. Me knowing me, like I could come up with an extra $500 to $1,000 a month if I needed to. So I wasn't really like worried about it too much if it did fail. I was more worried about like making it succeed, because if it failed and cost me like $1,000 a month until I pay it off, like cool. Or it succeeds and it's profiting like $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 a month. Like,
got it.
The upside was a lot higher than the downside for me.
I gotcha. So you assess your risk of like, okay, what's the cost of this decision? Can I afford to live? If it goes wrong, can I afford to live with this? Or the upside is, holy shit, I nailed this thing, and look at what my margins are going to look like. I saw your content, and who you are on social media is who you are in person. Mm-hmm. That's rare to find. So I'm so glad that you came on. Like, where are you taking your brand? How come you're getting the message out there? How come you're doing the military to millionaires? How come you started B&B Syndicate? Where are you taking your brand and marketing and your vision? Yeah,
so something that I hate to see is people just kind of, there's a quote that I put on my story the other day, but pretty much what the quote talks about is like, people sleep, they wake up asleep, they go to work asleep, they live their life asleep, and kind of people just wander through life like blindly, because if they have, like, I don't know how many people I talk to that like they live life like cool and happy, they go to work and stuff, and their credit is like a 400 score, they got like tons of late payments, collections, and I'm like, how are you just like chill, like living that way? Like they just, and it's not that they're chill with it, it's that they like neglect it. They pretend that it doesn't exist. And it's the same thing with anything that people get uncomfortable with. If they're in debt, if there's anything bad happening, they kind of like push it off and pretend that it doesn't exist instead of like facing the problem and like actually fixing it. So that's kind of like what I want to get people out of. And I want to eventually like expand my brand like outside of like rental arbitrage or Airbnb arbitrage, and get into like once I get into it, like teaching multifamily and Section 8 and stuff like that. And then talking about like mindset, particularly for people that are like around my age too. So like once they're older, they can teach people that are younger, and just keeps like going. Because something that I hate a lot, and something that you see a lot of people's parents, and definitely in the military, is that like back when I was a kid, like this sucked, so like it's got to suck for you too, which is like then you end up in this like dumbass like continuous cycle of like shit sucking for everyone, because like it sucked for you, so it has to suck for the next person. And that's huge in the military. They're like, well, when I was like an E3 or E4, like this is how it did, and it fucking sucked. So like you're gonna have to do it that way too. And I'm like, how does that make any sense? Like make it suck for everyone, so it just sucks forever. Like why not just make it not suck, so the person that it doesn't suck for teaches the next person how to make it not suck, and it just like gets better and better and better. And I mean, I guess people are naturally haters. Like if someone's winning, and I don't know how many people like I've talked to or like tried to help, and they're like, "No, I'm good," and I'm like, "You're not good though. Like you do need help." I was like, "You do need to make more money. You do need to like fix your credit. You do need to have a better mindset. You do need to get in the gym." Like, and there's people that just like they just neglect those things.
Well, your relentless drive is going to help. You know, I think you stick with it, and it's funny that you're so passionate about making a difference and making an impact. You know, I think that's where influence comes in. Like you're going to get through to some people, and those are the ones that you got to focus on. Like you said, you have over 200 students. Do you have fun?
Yeah, definitely. 100%. Yeah. I mean, I love talking about this stuff. I talk about it all day. It's like outside of this stuff, I'm a pretty quiet person. I'm pretty weird, I think, because anyone I talk to thinks I'm like a psychopath, because I don't really watch like a movie series or anything like that, like Harry Potter, Star Wars, Hobbit. I've never seen any of that stuff. Disney movies I don't watch. But like the only things I'm really interested in is just like getting better. Whatever it is, it could be anything, but just getting better at it.
Oh, I love being around you. Like it's like, how do you not spend an hour with you? You're going to be driven to live your life's purpose. That's why I was so fascinated. I'm like, had no idea who you were until we did the research, and I'm like, holy smokes! Like this guy's actually doing something worth talking about. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think the power of brand and, you know, being sincere, being who you are. Like I know you said you're going to do events. Highly encourage you. Like your what you've lived so far is pretty inspiring, which is I went into this industry. I had no clue about anything, and I just went and bought every program. I'm like, how do I make it better? Now I'm going to teach people how to change their lives. I'm going to have fun doing it. I'm going to be disciplined, and nothing's getting in my way. Like you're doing this the arbitrage, like David Goggins in that industry. Yeah, bro. I was watching something.
That's what he talks about too. He's like, I don't give a fuck about motivation. I don't give a fuck about like being determined. Like none of that shit matters. All these fancy words. He's like, just get it done. Just fucking do it. Because there's people that like pretend to be naive, or like it's like it's called like weaponized incompetence, or they're like, oh, poor me, like I don't know, and like like it's so easy to just the stuff I'm talking about, just go on YouTube, like how do I create a business, and there'd be a million videos tell you how to build an LLC, how do I fix my credit. So easy to find all that stuff, but people just like that. Oh, I'm gonna turn a blind eye, pretend like I can't find any of this stuff, and I'm just like stuck in my ways.
You know, I've thought a lot about this as well, and I see your point. I think, you know, the incredible awakening I've had is like, that's the power of connection. You know, you talked about social media and how it is toxic, you know, because like there's an advantage to people not having their own thoughts, you know, and not thinking for themselves. Mm-hmm. There's a huge advantage to that. Then you get to tell people what to do.
Exactly how to do it too.
Yeah, and exactly what you want them to do. I mean, that's just life. There's nothing like, you can accept life or you can be frustrated by it. It is what it is. That's my opinion. And I think when there's people that you know, that I wrote this down, I give a fuck. Like literally your episode is, I give a fuck. And that's in my industry, you know, being in real estate, That's one of the things that I really don't like about my industry. Nobody gives a fuck.
Not a single fuck.
You know? And that's not to be negative. I'm just being real. Like, that bothers me because that's my industry. It represents me. And so I go out of my way to do things differently for families, like what you're doing. Like, to me, like, the military community has a lot of tools. Like, there's a lot of problems. You know, things are changing. You know, you hear all the complaints and stuff. And then there's like tools that are available that can change legacy in life. You know, it's like you don't have to accept it. Like, get some people that you can trust that care more about what your goals are. Like, they genuinely try to connect with you and get to know what's important for you. And I think that's how we change our communities. So when I meet people like yourself, I'm like, 1000%. Why would I not advocate for this person that's really out there?
That's why I hate college.
What's that?
That's why I hate college so much. Because
what do you mean?
The lack of give a fuck. And like, unless you're gonna be like a doctor, a lawyer, like a profession that like requires a like a college degree, then yeah, go for it. But like, if you're going to college for like some kind of arts or like English or like really anything that's not like that you need a degree for, or even if you're getting like a degree to be a lawyer or a doctor so you can make a lot of money, like I would recommend, and I think it's not really a new thing to pay for mentorship. But most people like aren't in that realm of things. So it is like new to them. Like paying like 5, 10, 20, even I've paid like 6 figures, like $100,000 to just have a mentor, and people are like, oh my God, $100,000. Like, how'd you justify that? And I'm like, well, I got $100,000 worth of like information that like, and you don't know what you don't know. And cause a lot of people think they just like know everything. They're like, no, you can't possibly teach me that much worth. And I'm like, you don't know, like you don't know those things. But I would definitely say find a good mentor in whatever like business model you're trying to get into, whatever it is that you're trying to pursue. Find someone who's done it, is in the position that you want to be in, and is actually like a decent person to work with. Because there's people that have made a lot of money and do what you want to do, but like they're probably a shit mentor, because they probably got to where they were at because they neglected people. So don't find that mentor, but find someone who's good at what they do, have done it, and are going to treat you good, like as a mentor.
What's the question you ask right now what's one question that you ask every mentor that you're interviewing or thinking about hiring?
Who's your mentor?
Ooh, that's nice.
Yeah, I would never get a mentor that doesn't have a mentor. Because that means like they don't see the value in having a mentor or continuously learning. So like it doesn't make sense. Like me, like my students, like if I were to like have one mentor, learned everything that I learned and just like stopped where I'm at, like that means like what they can learn is capped based off like what I know, because their learning limit is based off like only what I know. Now, if I have multiple mentors and I'm learning like taxes, rental arbitrage, real estate, mindset, like all these different things, and like I can drip onto them like all this information. And if your mentors learning from people, like the mentors that I pay like $100K to learn from, I imagine how much they're spending to learn from people. Now I'm getting like pieces of that information from them because like they're going to do their best to be the best mentor. And if their mentor is teaching them who's better than them, then they're probably going to like drip it down to me. So it only makes sense.
I love your insight, man. Like just hearing you out, there's no doubt like you're worth investing money in. Like it's a no-brainer because it's like, dude, you see people. This is the beautiful thing. It's not, if you're paying attention, you're aware, you see the people that are going to make an impact. You're like, I get it. Yeah. 1000% get it. It's like you talk to those people and your students, you're like, oh, okay, this guy, he's doing something. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is like, what's the number one tip you would give to someone that's looking to change their life?
Stop pretending like everything's okay. I hate that, like, and people are gonna hate me for this, but I hate body positivity. That's like just a way of like neglecting that you're out of shape. I hate like people like just tell me everything's okay when like if everything's in shambles, like telling me everything's okay is not going to do anything. Like, stop neglecting things and pretending like they're not there, everything's okay, or like they don't exist. And people are like, but I'm overwhelmed. Like, I have so many of these things. Like, I can't face them head on. I'm overwhelmed. Like, you're supposed to be overwhelmed. If you're comfortable, that means you're not growing, you're not learning, you're not getting better. If you're overwhelmed, that means you're going to have to do something to not be overwhelmed. And that includes growing, getting better, learning, getting stronger, whatever it is. But if you're just like, oh, I'm overwhelmed, so like I'm not going to do those things. I'm going to pretend they're not there so I'm not overwhelmed. And like those things never get done, and you get stuck in the same way. Like, you live the same life for 40 years. You end up in your 60s and 70s. Now you're getting paid like Social Security. Like, you never did anything like awesome with your life. You never got to do all those things you wanted to do. And those things you're overwhelmed about, you never took care of them. So they're still there. Like, I just think it's a terrible way to live.
Calling it like it is. And the incredible part is you've been on this planet for 23 years and you're like, I'm short on time. I got to get fucking going. I'm like, I love this guy. Who makes your day better every day? Who do you want to thank? Who do you want to give a shout out to?
My wife and my dog. That's like that's what makes me happy. Like, when I come home, give my wife a hug. I'm seeing my dog. His name's Yeti, but he's a Frenchie, so I call him Pig.
Your dog's name is Yeti?
Yeah, Yeti.
I love it.
Because he's
and his nickname is Pig?
Yeah, I call him Pig. Because like, if you know Frenchies, like, they snort and like they grunt and they snore. And like,
yeah.
He sounds like a pig, like everywhere he goes.
Okay, we're going to have to put a picture of his Frenchie. It's, you said fluffy?
Yeah, he's a fluffy merle. He's a merle, so he's like white and gray.
It's love is first sight. I haven't seen the dog, so we're going to take a look at it.
He looks like a Yeti.
So. Yeah, he does. Hence the name, Yeti. I had a great time. Did you have fun?
Yeah, 100%.
That was awesome, and we'd love to have you back as you continue to grow this.
Yeah.
Steven Billman, B&B Syndicate, and he's already done all the work for you. So if you want to get into AirBNB Arbitrage, like, he's changing his industry. So there you go. Thank you so much, Steven.